We are counting down the 9 Australian bottled water brands you need to think twice about. From everyday budget options with hidden quality gaps to household names linked to surprising health and safety concerns, this countdown reveals brands that raise questions about transparency, inconsistent sourcing, hygiene, and even microplastic exposure. Which bottle poses the biggest long-term threat and why? Let us dive in, starting with number 9. Crystal Springs appears on supermarket shelves as a typical Australian spring water, but a closer look reveals a troubling lack of transparency. The label reads only Australian spring water, offering no specific spring name, region, or batch details. Unlike leading brands that sometimes publish certificates of analysis, Crystal Springs provides no recent lab reports or water quality data on its website. This means there is no public record of mineral content, microbial safety, or contaminant testing for consumers to review. Under the Australasian Bottled Water Institute voluntary code, members are expected to test water annually and share results, but Crystal Springs is not listed as a member. Without that commitment, there is no independent verification that the water meets even the industry's own standards. Food standards. Australia and New Zealand enforces basic food safety, but the gap between regulation and real-world disclosure leaves regular drinkers with unanswered questions. When a brand refuses to back up its claims with basic lab evidence, it is impossible to judge long-term safety, or even know what is really in the bottle. For anyone who values clear sourcing and documented quality, Crystal Springs' silence is a red flag that is hard to ignore. Black & Gold spring water sits on supermarket shelves as one of the cheapest bottled water options in Australia. The low price attracts budget-conscious shoppers, but the trade-off is a near-total lack of supplier transparency. The label offers only the most basic information, typically just the words spring water bottled in Australia, without naming the specific spring, region, or bottling facility. Unlike premium brands that sometimes post certificates of analysis or recent lab reports, Black & Gold provides no public water quality data. There are no published records detailing mineral content, batch testing, or microbial safety for consumers to review. This absence is not accidental. Private label brands like Black & Gold are produced under cost-first contracts, where retailers prioritize volume and price over detailed quality assurance. National distribution means that millions of bottles reach homes each year without independent verification of what is inside. Industry watchdogs, including Choice, have described the transparency of many private label waters as clear as mud. Without access to supplier audits or test results, shoppers are left to trust that basic food safety regulations have been met, but there is no way to check for consistency or long-term safety. For anyone who values documented quality, the Black & Gold model raises important questions about what is lost when price becomes the only priority. Coles natural spring water sits on supermarket shelves across Australia, promising a familiar taste and a consistent label. But a closer look at bottles from different states tells a different story. In New South Wales, the label lists a spring near the Central Coast. In Victoria, it points to a source in the Yarra Ranges. In Queensland, the spring is outside Toowoomba. These are not just different names, they are entirely separate water sources, each with its own mineral fingerprint. On the back of the label, the total dissolved solids figure, TDS, can swing by as much as 30 milligrams per litre depending on the state. That is enough to subtly change taste, mouthfeel, and even the potential health value of the water if consumed daily. Yet the front of the bottle looks identical no matter where it is sold, giving shoppers the impression of a single, unified product. The reason for this patchwork is simple logistics. Coles contracts with different bottlers in each region to cut transport costs and keep shelves stocked. But nowhere on the front label does it warn that what is inside may differ from state to state. Unlike some premium brands that publish certificates of analysis or a detailed mineral breakdown online, Coles leaves consumers to piece together the differences themselves, bottle by bottle. For anyone who assumes that a brand name guarantees a stable product, this quiet source switching adds a layer of uncertainty that most shoppers never spot. In a market where transparency is already in short supply, Coles natural spring water stands out, not for what it says, but for what it leaves unsaid. Woolworths home brand spring water is a staple on supermarket shelves, but the details behind each bottle are anything but straightforward. Unlike brands that control their own bottling from a single facility, Woolworths contracts out its home brand water to a network of third-party suppliers. These partnerships can change over time, sometimes with little or no public notice. Shoppers inspecting the label will find an important clue. The label reads "bottled for Woolworths, not bottled by." That single word signals a private label product, produced under contract and subject to change whenever the retailer finds a better deal or needs to shift supply. There is no consolidated supplier list available online, and the company is not required to announce when it switches bottlers or sources. As a result, the water inside two identical-looking bottles purchased months apart may come from entirely different springs, processed at different plants, each with its own mineral profile and potential for quality variation. The only way to spot a change is by checking the fine print on the back label. If a different bottler's name appears, it means the source has moved. For regular drinkers, this silent supplier swapping makes transparency nearly impossible, and it is hard to track what you are actually consuming over time. While Food Standards Australia-New Zealand enforces basic safety for all bottled water, the lack of transparency in private label sourcing leaves consumers with little power to assess consistency or long-term safety. In an industry where trust depends on clear information, Woolworths Home Brands contract model adds another layer of unpredictability to the bottled water aisle. Newpure supplies spring water to homes and offices across Australia, delivering it in large, reusable plastic jugs, often 15 or 19 litres each. These bottles cycle through filling, delivery, use and return, sometimes dozens of times before retirement. While Newpure advertises compliance with HACCP food safety and membership in the Australasian Bottled Water Institute, the company does not publish details about how often each jug is sanitised or how many reuses are allowed before a bottle is replaced. No public database or consumer-facing log tracks when a specific jug was last cleaned or retired from service. Industry standards require thorough cleaning of reusable containers, but the exact methods, chemicals and inspection steps remain internal company information. Scientific studies on similar multi-use water bottles have found that, over time, biofilms, thin layers of bacteria, can develop on inner surfaces, especially if sanitation slips or bottles are reused past their prime. Higher heterotrophic plate counts, a measure of general bacterial presence, have been linked to older jugs in independent research. While there are no public reports of illness tied to Newpure, the lack of accessible sanitation records means consumers must take the company's word on hygiene. For anyone relying on bulk water delivery, it is wise to ask the supplier how often containers are sanitized, how many cycles a bottle can go through, and whether recent microbiological test results are available. Regular cleaning of water dispensers at home or work, along with shorter storage times and cool conditions, can help reduce risks. When transparency about sanitation is limited, it pays to stay curious and proactive about what is in your water jug. Neverfail supplies bottled water to thousands of workplaces, schools and public buildings across Australia, relying on a vast network of depots and delivery routes. Each 15-litre or 19-litre jug is designed to be reused, passing through multiple hands as it cycles from the bottling plant to storage depots, then to customers and back again for refilling. This system depends on rigorous hygiene at every stage, but the company does not publish depot cleaning schedules or provide public access to sanitation logs. Jugs may sit in storage for weeks before delivery, especially in remote depots or during seasonal slowdowns, raising the risk of bacterial growth if cleaning routines lapse. Unlike single-use bottles, these large containers require not just one-time sterilisation, but ongoing attention to ensure biofilms or contaminants do not build up between uses. Food standards. Australia-New Zealand sets basic safety requirements for all packaged water, but there is no industry-wide mandate for public reporting of depot hygiene or delivery cycle duration. Facilities managers and procurement officers who rely on Neverfail for staff hydration are left with limited visibility into how often containers and depots are sanitised, or how long jugs have been in rotation. Without transparency, it becomes difficult to verify whether the water arriving at a workplace truly meets the highest hygiene standards throughout its journey. For organisations prioritising staff health, it is worth asking suppliers for written sanitation protocols and recent microbiological test results before signing a contract or renewing an order. When bulk water is handled through so many stages, documented hygiene is not just a technicality, it is a basic expectation. Number 3. Coohl. Coohl bottles spring water on a national scale, But what is inside each bottle can change dramatically depending on where it is purchased. The brand sources water from a network of springs across Australia, with different bottling facilities supplying New South Wales, Victoria, and Queensland. This approach keeps supermarket shelves stocked, but it also means the mineral content, the calcium, magnesium, and other dissolved solids, can fluctuate from batch to batch. A bottle bought in Sydney may contain water drawn from a spring in the Blue Mountains, while one sold in Melbourne could come from a completely different aquifer in regional Victoria. Even within the same brand, the label usually says Australian spring water and rarely names the specific source or gives a breakdown of minerals. For consumers who drink Coolridge daily, these quiet shifts can mean a noticeable difference in taste, mouthfeel, and even the potential health benefits or drawbacks of the water over time. Testing by consumer groups and independent labs has shown that the total dissolved solids, or TDS, in Coolridge bottles can swing by as much as 35 milligrams per litre between regions. Calcium and magnesium levels, both important for hydration and bone health, have also been found to vary significantly from one batch to another. Yet the packaging remains identical, offering no easy way to track these changes or compare bottles side by side. Coolridge does not publish detailed certificates of analysis or recent lab reports on its website, leaving consumers with little information beyond the generic claims on the label. This lack of transparency is not just a technicality, it makes it impossible for regular drinkers to know what they are getting or to make informed choices about their daily hydration. The scale of Coolridge's operation means that thousands of Australians may be drinking water with a different mineral profile than they expect, simply because the brand's logistics prioritise supply over consistency. While the national distribution model helps keep prices stable and shelves full, it also introduces a layer of unpredictability that most shoppers never notice. For anyone who values consistency in their bottled water or who wants to know exactly what minerals they are consuming, Coolridge's multiple source system is a reminder that even the biggest brands can leave important questions unanswered. Number 2. Pump water occupies a distinct place among Australian bottled waters. Its label reads purified water, not spring, and that single word, purified, signals a fundamental difference in what is inside. Instead of drawing from underground aquifers, pump sources municipal water, already treated to meet city standards, then subjects it to a rigorous second purification, most commonly reverse osmosis. This process forces water through a fine membrane, stripping away nearly all dissolved solids, including minerals like calcium and magnesium. What remains is water reduced to its simplest form. The nutrition panel tells the story in numbers. Pump reports total dissolved solids, TDS, at under 20 milligrams per litre. In contrast, natural spring waters in Australia often range from 50 to 300 milligrams per litre, depending on their geological origins. This means Pump delivers a product with almost no mineral taste, no buffering salts, and none of the subtle regional signatures found in spring water. The result is clear, neutral, and consistent, but it lacks the trace elements that some nutritionists consider important for hydration. Reverse osmosis is widely used to remove impurities and standardize water quality, especially for brands that promise purity. Yet this method removes beneficial minerals along with contaminants. For most Australians, whose diets supply ample minerals, the absence is unlikely to cause harm. But for those who rely on bottled water as a main source of hydration, or who consume large volumes daily, the lack of minerals can become significant over time. Some international health authorities recommend adding minerals back to purified water, especially for children, athletes, or in hot climates. Pump appeals to people who value predictability and clarity in their water, but it also prompts a question: does purity mean sacrificing the natural mineral content that defines spring water? In a market filled with regional claims, Pump stands out for its honesty, delivering a processed, standardized product and making the distinction clear. Mount Franklin stands as Australia's best-known bottled water, filling supermarket aisles, convenience stores, and office fridges from Perth to Sydney. Owned by Coca-Cola Euro-Pacific partners, the brand claims spring sources from protected catchments, but the real story lies not in the water itself, but in the bottle that delivers it. Each Mount Franklin bottle is made from polyethylene terephthalate, known as PET plastic, designed for single-use and mass distribution. This packaging choice, combined with industrial-scale bottling lines and national reach, has made Mount Franklin the most widely consumed bottled water in the country. What most people do not realise is that PET bottles are far from inert. Global studies, including work by Orb Media and research published in peer-reviewed journals, have revealed that 93% of PET bottled waters, including those from major brands, contain microplastics, tiny synthetic fragments invisible to the naked eye. In some cases, more than 10 particles larger than 100 microns are found in every litre, with far higher numbers in the smaller size ranges. The source of these particles is not just environmental pollution. During bottling, friction from high-speed capping machines causes PET flakes to shear off into the water. Even gentle squeezing or twisting of the cap can release additional fragments. The result is that every sip may carry microscopic plastics, some small enough to pass through the gut and into the bloodstream, according to recent advances in nanoplastics research. Mount Franklin's dominance makes this more than a technical issue. With millions of bottles sold each week, the aggregate exposure to microplastics is unmatched by any other Australian brand. Unlike glass or stainless steel, PET is prone to abrasion and degradation, especially when bottles are stored in warm conditions or handled roughly during transport. Yet, despite mounting evidence, Mount Franklin does not publish independent lab results for microplastic content, nor does it provide certificates of analysis detailing particle counts or polymer types. Food Standards Australia New Zealand currently enforces no specific limits for microplastics in bottled water, and the World Health Organization is still evaluating long-term health effects. For now, consumers are left with a growing body of evidence and little transparency from the industry's biggest player. The scale of Mount Franklin's operation, combined with the known risks of PET packaging, means that daily drinkers face the highest likelihood of ingesting microplastics over time. While the health consequences remain uncertain, the sheer volume of exposure is undisputed. For Australians who reach for a Mount Franklin bottle each day, the safest move is to reconsider single-use plastics as a default choice. Filtering tap water into a reusable bottle not only cuts down on plastic waste, but also avoids the documented risk of microplastics contamination that comes with every industrially bottled litre. Across all 9 entries, one pattern stands out: convenience and marketing routinely outweigh transparency in Australia's bottled water industry, whether it is shifting sources, vague testing, or microplastics in everyday bottles. The real risk is what we are not told. When water becomes a brand instead of a promise, every sip demands a second look. Stay curious and stay vigilant about what you drink.